Breach some board confidentiality and tell us what's going to happen in the future, but...
No, I can share that with you tonight, absolutely. I had the privilege, I suppose, and pleasure of being down in Canberra for the Prime Minister's 11 yesterday. It was a washout, of course, and I was representing Cricket Australia for the chairman, Wally Edwards, could not make it. He was coming back from Dubai and the ICC. So I figured that for this 24-hour period, I'm in charge of Australian cricket. So there's a couple of rule changes I implemented overnight. The benefit of the doubt now goes to the bowler. And also there's 6 bounces and over. So I hope that everyone's happy with that, because that's what I see as the future of Australian cricket.
Just on a serious note, are you enjoying it? Is it or is it a cumbersome sort of organisation with as many people as they have? Or
Yeah, interesting that the real quick snap of history. The reason why I'm there, I was president of the Australian Cricketers Association, the union, if you like. And Queensland Cricket asked me to get on board and replace Matthew Hayden as their independent member or appointee for the Cricket Australia board. Knowing the history of what was going on with all these reviews, from team performance, there's a financial model review, but also there's a corporate governance review. So when they did ask me, Graham Dixon and Jim Holding, the chairman of Queensland Cricket, asked me to go on the board, I said, so in other words, you want me to jump on the grenade? Which I thought I'd gladly do, and rather than sit on the outside and tell them what's wrong, I thought I'd be part of the solution and see if we can change things and make it a far better place to live.
That's very admirable. You should have played for another club. I spoke to Roger Trabes during the week, and we're here representing the lean years. We came to the club in the late 70s, and we just hung on long enough to get these blokes, and with John Buchanan came along, and I see Wade Seckerman, Tommy Gard, and I don't think if Jeff Foley is here, Paul Jackson. We had a very good team, but there was a lean period, Roger, wasn't there? And we were trying to work out why, in fact, it was so lean, and we still hadn't come to any conclusion. I don't know if you've...
Well, we for that decade or so, we didn't have a lot of luck with the toss, I can recall that.
No, but that's giving up early on. If you once you lose the toss, you think, oh, well, we're buggered.
I think...
we stayed in games longer than that.
I think we have to be honest with ourselves. I think, 15 years of a lean trot, there's not a lot of places you can turn. I don't think we quite had the personnel overall to compete. But that said, while they were lean years for the first grade, they certainly weren't lean years as a club.
No.
And it was a very rich club experience. I noticed here tonight John Harms from the great fourth grade side, and Gary Lanham, and other characters, Brad Thompson and Keith McNeil and Peter Martyn. They were a club within themselves in that fourth grade side. And the club was very strong, notwithstanding the fact that the first grade side was not particularly successful.
It was galling, wasn't it, to see everyone else do well? I think we came down to blaming Jerry Keating, actually, after much discussion, because Jerry used to bowl, as you don't know, Jerry, big, tall fellow, and he used to bowl in the nets at night when the lights had first come up. And the lights are about the same wattage of one of the candles on your table. And so he'd destroy the confidence of the batsman on the Thursday night, and then on Saturday he'd bowl about half as quick. And so we'd get carded all over the place. And I remember the great footy commentator Lou Richards saying that someone looked like Tarzan but played like Jane. And Jerry bowled like Tarzan on Thursday night, but on Saturday bowled like Jane. And we didn't get any runs, so it's Jerry's fault. But Marty, you came on board when things weren't too well, and you got 100 in your first game. What possessed you to come down to university? Because you must have been able to be sitting up there at Toowoomba reading the newspaper and thinking, could there be another club I should go to?
Well, actually, I got a visit from Wep. He now, hearing the story about his car, I'm amazed he actually made it up the range. It was the Nissan Pulsar, I think, in those days. But he came up and saw me at school and convinced me to come down to uni. And from that point on, I thought I'd take particular notice of the results on a Sunday in the Courier Mail. They print them in the back of the scorecards there. And I kept looking at uni, never scored any runs. 120, there'd be, Kasprowicz playing, Wade Seckerman was playing, Sean Fleeger, so there were some young players in there.
Well, so 120?
Well, that was on a good day, I guess.
Well, that's runs.
So when I came down, then I realised why. I looked at the three people in slips, they're all wearing glasses, and they're all our top order batsmen. So they obviously couldn't see the ball. So I figured that was probably one of the reasons why you didn't do so well through the 80s.
Yes, that could have been one of the reasons. I remember, Roger, I can still remember it was down the Gold Coast, and I might have opened with Bomber, and you might have batted 3. And where would have you batted that first game? Did you bat 3?
No, I came in on a hat-trick.
Oh, did you? Okay. Yeah.
So I must have been batting 4.
That's right, I was out first. And then, Ron, you were out. And
I don't recall that, actually.
remember we were up reading the paper as we normally did and thinking, oh, this is very pleasant down here, just reading the paper, taking it easy. And all of a sudden this bloke's hitting covered drives. We hadn't seen a covered drive at the club for about 6 years. Oh, who's this smart ass? And next, you know, the ball's being flicked off his hip for 6, and we thought, oh, this is nirvana. You know, we've finally got someone who can bat. And Kasper, of course, he'd played for Queensland when you were 17 and come straight from State High. And so we had the nucleus of something going on, and then Buck came and gelled things together, and we had a good old stint leading into the current golden age.
Yeah, I guess the reason why I came to University of Queensland Cricket Club was a little bit different. I didn't get a visit from Wet, but I got to know a few players. Scott Muller, that played cricket for Australia. He also played for Queensland. But he was a year older than me. He was a fast bowler through the system, and I knew him. I knew Wade as well. I played against him. He was I think, South Brisbane at the time, and he was obviously the Darling Downs up in Toowoomba. But it was interesting. When I thought back about why I played cricket for University of Queensland and then ended up spending 19 years being very loyal, playing for one club and one club only, I realised what I did when I first started was that Scott Muller said to me, after training, there's no lock on the fridge and everyone helps themselves to the piss. So it's a bit of a worry when you're 17 years old and that's what your priorities are. So I thought I fed it in pretty well.
I remember those years. Gary Lanham used to do the end of the financial reports for the end of the year, and whenever he'd say, you know, we're the only club in the world that loses money on grog sales, Webb used to just tip in the difference. He was a remarkable bloke, and actually Webb, who would work at the club, 16 hours a day, was the only one who paid for his grog. Remember, we used to go up and just rattle around the tin. Yeah, Webb, put the money in, mate.
But what about when I think, was it Cecil, the guy that actually had, he paid money to run the bar, I think yep, and he had the foresight to put a padlock on the fridge.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yep.
It was an outrage.
What he didn't realise, though, was that a broomstick actually could fit over the top of it and just managed to knock out your stubbies, I think. And as long as there was someone underneath the catch and before they shook them up too much, you were fine.
It was like a vending machine. You just didn't have to put the money in. You just tipped it out and came
Something
down.
like that,
yeah. I remember that. And we had a lot of people who used to come and say, yeah, we'll do the catering. This is going to be a gold mine. And they all left after about a month, losing money hand over fist.